Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't think the Cubs are thinking too much about it. Obviously, they're thinking some, but it's on the back burner. It's really about this 25 season, which tells me he's going to free agency, which tells me 29 teams, probably more like 7, are going to be highly interested, and it puts the Cubs behind the 8 ball. The time to sign him really was after the trade, like the Mets did with Lindor, like the Braves did with Matt Olson. Doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just that the odds continue to diminish as we get closer to free agency.
It's time for Sportsnaut's MLB podcast. Big League Buzz, news and interviews from around the majors. Here's your host, Scott Gulbransen.
Welcome back to Big League Buzz, the MLB podcast from Sportsnaut. I'm Scott Gulbransen, your host, and joining us today to talk a little bit about those hot Chicago Cubs is Jesse Rogers from ESPN.com. And he covers the Cubs. So Jesse, listen, appreciate you being with us. First of all, thanks for taking the time today. The Cubs with this strong start in 2025, the bullpen turning into a strength in May has been pretty cool. You've commented on Craig Counsell's impact this year compared to last, noting his focus on areas like base running. How much do you attribute the team's overall turnaround and success to Counsell in this second year? And what have you noticed? What differences are you seeing in his approach this season?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the things you'll see would be behind the scenes. It's just interactions. I really liken it to somebody starting a new 9-to-5 job and not knowing anybody there and taking time to learn. Unfortunately, you have to play baseball games and you can't fast forward that stuff. So I think last year was just a learning experience and kind of a more observational experience for him. He may see it differently, but that's kind of how I saw it. And then I think seeing sort of the smaller market fingerprints that he had in Milwaukee and bringing that to Chicago, I think you're seeing it this year in the amount of time they spent on base running, for example, understanding with the new rules that base running and defense are nearly as important as slugging and pitching and everything else. So I think it's just been an evolution for him over the last year, mostly just knowing people better and knowing what buttons to push, but also a focus on winning aspects that not every team focuses on and don't always have the personnel to. But I think he had a big hand in the acquisition process in the offseason, but certainly in strategizing how they're going to, run this offense, literally run this offense, because anybody on that roster, almost anyone, can run the bases the way that Craig Counsell likes. And any team would love to have that many guys that can steal a base and go second home in extra innings, for example, and things like that. Just the littlest of things can help you win games along with the slugging. So it's a great combination this year.
Well, what about, like you mentioned, coming from a smaller market, getting used to the Chicago, and listen, the Chicago market, when it comes to the Cubs and sports in general, it's an intense market. How has his personality changed anymore? Or has it just been a level of comfort with him dealing with when there are setbacks, when there are challenges, because they are pretty well widely covered when those happen? What have you noticed about that from his demeanor's perspective?
Yeah, I think it's familiarity more than anything. Can even include the media in that department. He didn't really know a lot of people. I've known him for a long time, but in general, you're getting to know a whole new group of people in the media that you will spend a lot of time with. So I think it's familiarity with everyone from the roster to the coaching staff to the front office to the media. And so I would probably say, and he would admit, he's a little bit looser this year for all those reasons. Again, put yourself in a new job. You're going to be a little bit looser as you get to 6 months, a year on the job. And I liken it to that. So unfortunately, you can't fast forward a lot of things. My point being, unfortunately, meaning you have to go through it. And that probably set them back a little bit last year. But the benefits of this season come from the negatives of last season, so to speak. So I think he's looser, knows his team better. And there's a lot of perfect storm things going on. You're getting the best version of Kyle Tucker on this team. You're getting the best current version of PCA, for example. Some of that has to do with Craig Counsell. Some of it has to do with the front office picking the right guys. And some of it has to do with the players, of course, maturing and finding the right place this year.
Yeah, now the Cubs, again, continue to surge. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. And watching some of the stuff that you've talked about recently, you recently highlighted the Diamondbacks as a potential new player in the sellers market, specifically mentioning Zach Gallen and of course, Merrill Kelly as likely candidates given their situation. With the Cubs' need for starting pitching depth due to the injuries, how well do you think either Gallen or Kelly would fit that Cubs rotation? What makes them appealing targets for Chicago?
I'd say like a glove. Obviously, they have to pitch maybe a little bit better in Gallen's case than he has to this point. One of the reasons the Diamondbacks aren't great is because some of those starters haven't been great, but really their problems are in the bullpen. Um, Bottom line, Gallen and Kelly have a lot of mileage on their arms these last few years. Okay, fine. Gallen's not pitching necessarily the way he did earlier in his career, but he could turn it around at any point, and they have October experience, World Series experience. The Cubs need that. You might love Cade Horton, a little wonky maybe in October compared to June. Maybe not. Maybe he'll be that rookie that's great, but I'd rather have some certainty in a guy like Gallen or a guy like Kelly. And Kelly's pitched better than Gallen this year, but I'd take either one. I'd take either one. Top of the rotation guys with playoff experience. And if the Cubs can clinch early somehow, give them a little break. Those guys with a lot of mileage, like I think they need to be with an offense that can provide what the Cubs do, the Diamondbacks did as well, but then a bullpen that will provide less stress on the starting staff. And that's the difference between right now Chicago and Arizona. So I think either pitcher would look good here and look even better here with the assets that the Cubs have, especially in the bullpen.
Yeah, and talking about that with the Diamondbacks, you suggested recently that the Cubs should just go all in at the trade deadline, perhaps unloading a bunch of that farm system for pitching help. Realistically, how aggressive do you expect Jed Hoyer and the front office to be in pursuing a significant pitching upgrade based on your insights? What kind of prospect package might it cost them for one of those top tier arms?
Yeah, I'd say very aggressive. The prospect package is a little bit difficult to gauge because obviously it depends on how many other teams are involved. Probably will be a lot, which means the package will go up. But we are still talking about pending free agents. If you use Gallen and Kelly as examples, I don't think it's a 5-for-1 deal for either one of them. But yes, Owen Casey probably available. Moises Ballesteros probably available. I mean, where it gets difficult is, okay, let's say Cade Horton levels off, and again, not a lot of experience. The Diamondbacks would say, okay, you want Zach Gallen, it's going to cost you Cade Horton, a guy that's a free agent compared to a guy beginning his career. I'm betting the Cubs would say no unless they're really desperate for that top of the rotation guy. So there are easier trades to be made, guys that are expendable, like those outfielders or Ballesteros. The tougher question is a guy like Cade Horton, who's in rotation now, but doesn't have the experience that Gallen or Kelly do. So I think they're all in mode. I think the sign will be actually if they really go after the top closer on the market, like the Aroldis Chapman deal in 2016. If the Cubs are going after whoever that's going to be, Felix Bautista, someone else, that's a sign to me. Even if Valencia is going well, they're going all in because that's where a team wants to lock down the 7th, 8th, and 9th for 4 rounds or 3 rounds of the playoffs. And I think going after the best closers is the telltale sign of that.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned him earlier with Kyle Tucker, been that immediate high impact player for the Cubs since he was acquired. But putting aside his recent minor injury, he's performing at an all-star level again. What does his performance mean for the team this season? And looking ahead, what might be the Cubs' strategy and the potential cost for a long-term contract extension for a player like Tucker?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't think the Cubs are thinking too much about it. Obviously, they're thinking some, but it's on the back burner. It's really about this 25 season, which tells me he's going to free agency, which tells me 29 teams, probably more like 7, are going to be highly interested, and it puts the Cubs behind the 8 ball. The time to sign him really was after the trade, like the Mets did with Lindor, like the Braves did with Matt Olson. Doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just that the odds continue to diminish as we get closer to free agency. I don't think they're thinking about it. I think they're thinking about how much he impacts this offense. And yeah, I mean, you asked me what he means. I mean, he's a true superstar. I was talking to AJ Hinch the other day. He coached him in Houston, and he was telling me even when he entered the league with a bunch of all-stars, Altuve and Bregman, they all stopped and watched this kid. His plate coverage is amazing. His eye at the plate has improved, more walks than strikeouts. He's got power to all fields. He runs the bases better than most. He steals bases. It's the complete package, which is why he's going to get 400 to 600 million. So it's been a pleasure to watch. He's been everything and probably more, considering it's not easy to change teams, leagues, cities for the first time in your career and just get get off to such a fast start like he did, but I think his demeanor, his laid back attitude helped in that manner. So I think he's vital to their success this season, and I don't think they're worried about the future.
Nice. Well, and then you talked about PCA, Pete Crow-Armstrong, of course, in that Cubs lineup, and you've expressed a desire to see him higher in the order. What do you see as PCA's long-term potential and trajectory with the Cubs? And I'll ask you this on him too, from a front office perspective. What factors will influence if and when the team might explore a long-term contract with him?
Yeah, so a couple things there. First of all, I just, like anybody, want him to get that extra bat in the 8th or 9th inning because he's so dynamic. So look, if he's in the top 4 in this lineup, that's fine. Maybe against the lefty, he's 5. If Hap ever falls off the table, and he was struggling after an injury, you can maybe move PCA back up. But PCA doesn't walk too much, though he has over the last few games. Ultimately, he's going to be a top 3 hitter. I mean, that's if he continues on this path. I mean, the ability to get on with slugs, steal bases, you want him getting an extra at bat, the 5th at bat in the game. But he has to improve his eye at the plate a little bit more to truly be a number 1 hitter, in my opinion. But if he's 2, 3, 4, that's okay as well. I mean, I don't think Craig Counsell's losing much sleep over the lineup, the batting order. It's been really good all year. If they slump, that'll change. You know, he may have to rearrange. But even Dansby, who was dropped to 8th, has now been really hot for a while. So and Michael Busch is hot again. So I'm not sure it matters where PCA bats right now. In the future, obviously, I think it'll be in the top 3. I think his contract is a little formulaic. I do think an extension will happen. I mean, I'm sure if Jed or Carter was on this Zoom, they'd say, look, it's not as easy as you think. But there's 2 buckets. Like there's the $75 million, I think, Michael Harris, that kind of prospect you sign up earlier in his career and you get something out of him. And then there's that bucket you jump into over $100 million. Corbin Carroll, Bobby Witt, Jackson Merrill, Jackson Churio, those kinds of guys. He's clearly jumped into that category. So to me, it's a little formulaic. You just have to land on the right number. It's not $300 million. It's not $200 million. It's somewhere between 110 and 150. To me, that feels like something that can get done, but I'm not the age, I'm not the team, but there's a number there with team options, 7, 8 years, get him past free agency, 2 or 3 years, give him a couple team options. It's the kind of contract a lot of those guys have gotten. The question I think the team is getting their head around is he now jumped truly into that category and not just like the 7-year, $75 million guy? I think most people around the league would say yes.
Well, yeah, and especially if things continue to go the way they are and the Cubs continue on the track they're on, and we start getting into the late months of the season into the playoffs and your performance goes there, certainly you see those guys boost their value when they perform when the postseason's on the line. Let me ask you this. Have you pull out the crystal ball. The way the Cubs are going, some of the challenges they have, of course, with the strengths they have, what's your confidence that this team keeps it together, wins this Central Division, and is positioned well going into the playoffs? I know we're looking way ahead. It's only June,
Yeah.
Jesse, but what are you thinking?
Well, I rarely make, statements early in the season, but I think about a week ago, like most people, I think I don't see them losing the division, barring the injury factor, obviously on the mound, especially. I've seen enough. I've seen enough of the division, to be honest, and I still think, and we've seen it. Milwaukee made a run. I think Cincinnati probably will make a run. St. Louis made their run. I'm not sure they can be even better than they are. So they'll be pushed a little bit here and there, but it certainly feels like they're going to win this division and probably be positioned pretty well. The return of Imanaga might actually be a silver lining, the injury, because it's a month less of wear and tear on his arm, and it wasn't an arm injury. So there's no big issue coming back from it. They're going to really ride him October-wise. I mean, they're going to have to. They got to pair him with someone, I think, outside the team, the roster right now, and that's what July trade deadline will be about. So they should be positioned pretty well. I still have some doubts, like the bloom is off Colin Ray a little bit. Ben Brown has been up and down, though there's talent there. The midnight might strike for Matthew Boyd at some point. He might need a little break because he hasn't pitched a full season. Like, there's definitely some question marks. I'm not even completely convinced about the bullpen and Daniel Palencia. They've been handed a lot of big leads. Big leads will make bullpens, kind of enter the game with a less stressed environment. October is all about stress. So I'm not, all I'm saying is, to me, the bullpen's still not tested enough. There's definitely question marks, but I think the beauty of it, they have 3 to 4 months to answer those question marks and get their team in the right position, because they're not chasing in the standings. They're the ones being chased. And I think that will continue throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this, they're certainly fun to watch, and we appreciate you giving us the latest there. And we'll catch up with you maybe right before the trade deadline. Jesse Rogers from ESPN.com in Chicago. Jesse, thanks for being with us.
Anytime. Be well.
All right, so there you have it. A big thanks to Jesse Rogers from down in Chicago. ESPN.com covers the Cubs, also covers the White Sox. I didn't ask him much about the White Sox. I didn't want to upset White Sox fans because there's not much good news there. But anyway, Cubs, are you impressed? Are you believers that the Cubs will hold on in the Central Division of the National League and be players in October? Will they? I mean, they got the same method. Excuse me. They have the same record as the New York Mets. Not too many games off the best record in baseball. And they surprised me. I thought the Reds would kind of just explode in that division this year. They have not. They played around 500 baseball. They're 9 games behind the Cubs. Now, Jesse said he expects maybe the Reds to make a run in that division a little bit, but I think the Cubs are going to hold on there. Granted, as long as they don't have major injuries or anything crazy happen. But I want to know if you're a believer. Tell us in the comments below, whether you're watching us on video or you're listening to the audio, whether you are a believer in the Cubs yet. I know it's only the beginning of June, but man, they've come out strong, and it looks like, I mean, they're going to be aggressive in the trade market. They have the minor league depth to go get pieces. It's a matter of what price they would have to pay. But that's it. Hey, there you go. Your edition of Big League Buzz. We certainly appreciate you being with us here at Sportsnaut. This is our Major League Baseball podcast. Do us a favor. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. Do us also another favor. Yes, I'm asking for 2. Rate and review the podcast and share it with your friends. We certainly appreciate that very much. If you're watching us on video, don't forget to hit subscribe, hit that notifications bell, and give us a thumbs up if you would. Until next time, everybody, we will be talking baseball all the time up on sportsnaut.com. And until then, make sure you keep swinging for the fences. Take care now.